A small-town mayor and his 10-year-old daughter left a local golf club and vanished without a trace. For 8 years, there was no explanation, no ransom note, no leads, just silence. But then, during renovations at the town church, something buried beneath the stone floor shattered that silence forever and revealed the reason they never made it home. It was a crisp fall morning in New Braunfels, Texas. Rachel Whitaker, now 47, had just finished her daily jog, something she'd committed to every single morning since her husband Harold and daughter Phoebe disappeared. The routine wasn't just about health, it was survival. It gave her days shape when everything else had collapsed. Harold had been the town's mayor, charismatic, trusted, in the prime of his life. Their daughter Phoebe had just turned 10. Witnesses remembered them leaving the golf club that September afternoon, and someone had even spotted them grabbing snacks at a nearby store. But they never came back. The investigation had been exhaustive. Fields combed, woods searched, flyers plastered everywhere, but nothing, not a single answer. Just grief and questions that only grew darker over time. Rachel's morning walks had started as a way to manage panic, silent battles with fear and hope. Eventually, they became something steadier, a way to keep moving, even when there was nowhere to go. That morning, she chose a new route, passing by First Grace Church. Its stone walls glowed gold in the sunlight, but something immediately felt off. Police cruisers were parked out front, their lights off, but presence clear. Construction trucks sat frozen mid-task. A crowd was gathering, confused murmurs, necks craning for a better look. Rachel approached a couple standing near the police tape. "Do you know what's going on?" she asked, trying to keep her voice level. The woman replied, eyes wide with tension, masked as curiosity. "They started renovations yesterday, but this morning, something happened. Maybe they uncovered artifacts or something." But Rachel already knew it wasn't that. Then she saw him, Detective Hans Carson, her family's longtime case officer. His expression shifted the moment he recognized her. Relief, dread, a quiet urgency that made Rachel's heart sink. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said, a little breathless. "Thank God. We've been trying to reach you. We called, even sent an officer to your house." "I was on my walk," Rachel replied, her voice barely audible. "Hans, what's going on?" He paused, then said carefully, "We found something. It's about your family. We need you. For identification." The words hit harder than a scream. Rachel's knees buckled slightly as Hans guided her past the church's front doors, through the nave, and into corridors she'd never entered before, places hidden from the public. The atmosphere changed. Tension thickened. Clergy members, construction workers, officers, everyone stood aside as she passed, their eyes heavy with something unspoken. And then they reached it, a gaping hole in the floor, crumbled stone and fractured beams. At the center of it all, something industrial, something out of place. A rusted oil barrel, half sunken into the earth, surrounded by broken concrete. Roy Ditt, the lead detective, stood nearby. "Rachel," he said gently, "thank you for coming." "Just tell me," she whispered. He nodded toward the hole. During renovations on the bell tower stairs, part of the old concrete gave way. Workers weren't expecting anything underneath, but the collapse revealed a sealed basement. This room isn't listed on any church blueprints. Staff didn't even know it existed. Someone went to great lengths to hide it. Rachel's eyes locked onto the barrel. It was out of time, out of place, and she already knew, deep down, what was inside. Roy's voice was steady, but his next words made Rachel's breath catch. One of the workers tripped. That's how they spotted it. Just the top of the barrel was poking through. It had been buried, sealed in concrete, deliberately hidden. Nobody at the church knew it was even there. "That's when they called us." Rachel's voice barely came out. "What's inside?" Hans and Roy exchanged a look. Then Hans handed her a mask. "Please, put this on." Her fingers trembled as she pulled the mask over her face. Deep down, she already knew, but knowing something and seeing it with your own eyes are two very different things. The officer stepped back. Roy pried the lid open, and even through the mask, the smell hit like a wall. And then she saw him, the scream ripped from her throat. Harold! Even after 8 years, even after time had taken its toll, she knew. The blue polo, now faded gray, the beige pants she had ironed that morning, his birthday shoes, and the hat, his signature cowboy hat, now crushed and stained. Rachel's legs buckled. She collapsed, only vaguely aware of strong arms catching her, pulling her away from the barrel. Someone removed her mask as she gasped for air, sinking to the floor along the wall. Hans knelt beside her, hand steady on her shoulder. "Breathe, Mrs. Whitaker. Deep breaths. You're safe." Tears came in waves. 8 years of not knowing. 8 years of hope fighting with dread, all crashing down in one moment. Harold was gone, had been all along, hidden in that place while she kept searching, waiting. "Phoebe," she whispered through the sobs. "Did you find my Phoebe?" Roy's face softened. He crouched beside her. "There's no sign of your daughter. I'm so sorry. This was the only remains found." Another surge of grief hit her like a tide. She had an answer, but only one. And that answer opened up 1,000 more questions. Where was her daughter? Roy's voice was calm but firm. "Rachel, I know this is overwhelming, but this changes everything. Whoever did this, they're still out there. And with what we've found, with your help, we may finally get justice for Harold." She nodded, forcing herself upright. Her voice was quiet but certain. "That's him, Harold Whitaker, my husband, the mayor of this town." "We'll need to examine him," Roy said gently. "Being sealed like that for so long, well, there's preservation. But we need to confirm identity, possibly even determine the cause of death." "Can't you just do DNA testing?" Rachel's voice cracked. Roy shook his head. "That kind of testing's still new. Only the major labs handle it, and they're backed up. The first conviction using DNA happened just last year. It's slow, and we can't wait that long." Rachel was silent for a long time. Then she nodded. "Do what you need, but please, I want to give him a proper burial." "You have my word," Roy said. "Harold will be honored the way he deserves. And Rachel, there's still a chance. Phoebe might be alive. She'd be 18 now." Rachel closed her eyes. 8 years. What kind of person does something like this? Who seals someone in a barrel and walks away? They made their way back up the narrow stairs into the church above. The stained glass windows cast soft light into the sanctuary, light that now felt too bright, too clean after the darkness she had just seen. The church's pastor approached, his voice low and kind. "Mrs. Whitaker, I'm so sorry. If you need prayer, someone to talk to, I'm here." Before she could respond, another voice cut in, sharper, rehearsed. "Rachel." Mayor Clyde Rennick appeared, his expression full of carefully measured concern. "I heard what happened. I came right away. This is terrible, truly." Rachel managed a nod. "Your husband was a great man," Rennick continued. "His leadership meant a lot to this town. It inspired me personally. If there's anything the city can do..." Then he turned to Roy. "Detective, I'd like to speak with you about the case. This is a high priority." Rachel quietly excused herself and slipped into the sanctuary. She sank into a pew, eyes on the cross above the altar. Memories surged, Phoebe doodling during Sunday service, Harold squeezing her hand during prayer. Then the door creaked open. Hans stood there, quietly. "Mrs. Whitaker, we're ready to take you home." She rose on shaky legs. "Thank you." Outside in the parking lot, Mayor Rennick was waiting. "Rachel, Please let me drive you. We're headed the same way. She hesitated, then nodded. Too tired to argue, too emotionally wrung out to care about appearances. That's kind of you. Hans gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze. We'll be in touch soon. Try to rest. She followed Rennick to his car, a polished black Lincoln, its chrome gleaming in the morning sun. The seats were smooth leather. The contrast between this quiet luxury and what she'd just seen underground was almost too much to process. Between the seats sat a car phone, gleaming in its cradle, and in Rachel's mind, the image of Harold, his body, his hat, that awful barrel, refused to fade. 8 years of waiting had led here, and yet this didn't feel like closure. It felt like the beginning. This wasn't the bulky Motorola Harold had reluctantly installed in his old Buick years ago. The car phone in Mayor Rennick's Lincoln was sleek, modern, clearly expensive, probably worth more than some people's rent. Rachel tried not to judge. After everything she'd seen that morning, she didn't have the strength left for petty thoughts. Still, the contrast gnawed at her. Harold had driven the same modest car for 6 years. He used to say city money should fix schools, not buy mayor's luxury vehicles. Rennick started the engine, the V8 humming with smooth confidence. Harold was a remarkable leader, he said as they pulled out of the church lot. His passion for this town, his vision, it inspired me. But Rachel had no patience for ceremonial praise. There's something I've been meaning to ask, she cut in. My husband's journals, his notes from City Hall. Do you still have them? The mayor's hands stiffened on the wheel. For a second, the car drifted before he corrected it. Silence stretched, tight as a wire. Yes, he said eventually. His tone was measured. After the investigation, everything was returned to City Hall. Standard process. Anything left becomes municipal property. Rachel's eyes narrowed. Even his personal journals? Some of those documents included sensitive city matters, Rennick replied smoothly. Personnel records, internal notes. We had to protect them. I want them back, Rachel said. Her voice had steel in it. Steel she didn't know was still inside her. At least the personal items, they belonged to him, not to the city. Rennick adjusted the mirror, though there was no need. I'd have to check where they ended up. I believe they're in the archives. Can we go now? The words tumbled out before she could think. After today, I just need something of his. I'm not ready to go home yet. The mayor chewed on his response for a beat, then sighed. I have time. Let's take a look. The morning clerk should know where it's filed. City Hall was only 3 blocks away. Its limestone exterior stood tall, a relic of mid-century optimism. Rennick parked in the same reserved spot that once bore Harold's name. Inside, the air smelled of waxed linoleum and aging paper. The receptionist looked up from her typewriter, clearly surprised. Mayor Rennick, you're in early. This is Rachel Whitaker, he said. She's here to retrieve her husband's personal items from the archive. The woman's face softened. Of course. I heard about... I'm so sorry. She pulled a heavy ring of keys from her drawer. Follow me. Down in the basement, fluorescent lights buzzed over rows of metal shelves. She led them straight to a section marked 1980-1985 and stopped in front of a weathered cardboard box. Here, she said, lifting the lid. I separated the official records a long time ago. These are personal, journals, notes, a few photographs. Rachel's hands trembled as she reached for the top item, a leather-bound journal with a familiar coffee stain in one corner. She remembered that morning. Phoebe had knocked over Harold's mug while showing him a drawing. Thank you, she whispered. Take your time, the clerk said gently. That box is yours. Back in the lobby, Rennick took the box from her arms, their hands brushing. His palm was damp despite the cool air. In the car, the box sat between them like a fragile memory. Rachel watched familiar buildings pass through the window, her voice quiet. I hate to ask more of you, she said as they neared downtown, but could you drop me at the library? I'm not ready to go home yet. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught something. The mayor's head snapped slightly. An eye roll, or maybe she imagined it. A blink later, his politician mask was back in place. Of course, he said warmly. The library it is. Take all the time you need. Thank you. You've been very kind. We're like family, Rennick said, voice smooth. Those of us who serve this town. The words landed with a dull thud, hollow, performed. Rachel didn't have the strength to weigh whether he meant them or not. She clutched the box a little tighter as the library came into view. Its red brick walls rose like an island of quiet. The mayor pulled to the curb, engine still running. Thank you again, Rachel said, stepping out. Harold would have done the same for me, he replied. But the hesitation in his voice betrayed uncertainty. Even he didn't seem convinced. Rachel climbed the steps, the box heavy in her arms. Heavy with 8 years of silence, 8 years of waiting. The library doors closed behind her with a soft thud. The scent of old books and lemon polish wrapped around her like a worn blanket. At the circulation desk, Mrs. Hendress looked up. Mrs. Whitaker, she said, her voice warm. And for the first time that day, Rachel didn't have to pretend to be strong. Mrs. Hendress noticed the box in Rachel's arms and offered a kind smile. I saw you arrive with Mayor Rennick. That was thoughtful of him. Would you like a quiet space to work? That would be wonderful, Rachel replied, her voice still unsteady. She followed the librarian past rows of card catalogs and microfiche readers into a small study room tucked in the back. One table, one chair, and a window overlooking the garden. Peaceful, private. Take all the time you need, Mrs. Hendress said gently, closing the door behind her. Rachel set the box down and slowly sat. Her hands shook as she opened the lid and lifted Harold's journals, brushing her fingertips across the spines like they were sacred objects. The one labeled 1980 pulled at her. She opened it to the first page. Harold's tidy handwriting blurred before her eyes. She blinked, tried to refocus, held the journal at arm's length, brought it closer. Nothing helped. The words refused to sit still. Then it hit her, her reading glasses. They were still on her nightstand, right where she'd left them before her jog. All she had now was her small wallet, tucked in the pocket of her running shorts. Rachel stepped quietly from the study room and spotted Mrs. Hendress helping a patron in the reference section. I'll be right back, she called softly. Just need to pick up some reading glasses. There's a pharmacy 3 doors down, Mrs. Hendress said. Displays right up front. They usually have a good selection. Outside, the late morning sun was brighter now. Rachel squinted and froze. The mayor's black Lincoln still sat parked at the curb, engine off. No sign of Rennick. Odd. She'd assumed he'd gone on to other duties. The pharmacy was just where the librarian had said. A bell above the door should have chimed, but the mechanism hung loose and silent. Inside, the space stretched toward the back, lit by dim, buzzing fluorescent lights. No one stood behind the counter. A cup of coffee sat untouched beside the register, steam long gone. The reading glasses were displayed near the pharmacy counter. Rachel picked out a familiar strength, Pars 150, and tested them on a nearby magazine. Good enough. Hello? She called out. I need to pay for these. Silence. Excuse me? She tried again. Still nothing. She eyed the counter. Someone had clearly just been there. The coffee was fresh, not cold. It didn't make sense. Hesitant, she stepped around the counter, drawn by the murmur of voices from a hallway leading to a back office. You need to handle this properly, came a man's voice, low, firm. We didn't know, another voice responded, younger, more nervous. It was done. It's safe, I swear. Rachel froze. She had no idea what they were talking about. but the tension in the voices sent a chill through her. She raised a hand to knock, and the voices stopped. A moment later, the door creaked open. A thin man in a white pharmacy coat appeared, his name tag reading Dale. "Oh, sorry," Rachel stammered. "I just need to pay for these." No one was out front. Behind him, just for a second, she saw inside the office. Mayor Rennick sat in a metal chair, his face tight with a look Rachel didn't recognize. Hard, calculated, not the usual polished calm. Their eyes locked. The mask slipped back into place instantly. Rennick stood up, adjusting his tie. "Rachel, what a surprise," he said with forced cheer. "Just checking on things. Routine inspection, making sure local businesses are in compliance with health standards." The glare he shot Dale could have frozen water. "Of course," Dale muttered, flustered. "Everything's fine, Mayor." He stepped forward and motioned toward the register. "Let me ring those up for you, ma'am." Rachel fumbled for her wallet, but Rennick's hand darted out first, offering a $20 bill. "Please," he said, "allow me." "Mayor, they're only 3. Doesn't matter. Like you said, just glasses. I'm happy to help." He pressed the bill into Dale's hand. Rachel saw Dale's eyes widen. $20 for $3 glasses. Even in 1988, that wasn't casual generosity. "Keep the change," Rennick added, his tone cool but pointed. "Yes, sir." Dale nodded, folding the bill quickly. "Thank you, sir." Rennick leaned in, his voice low. "Check every expiration date, all of them. No mistakes." The pharmacist swallowed hard. "Understood, Mayor." Rachel followed Rennick out of the store, her glasses in a small paper bag. The bright sunlight made her blink. "Thank you," she said. She wasn't sure what else to say. "Think nothing of it," Rennick replied, slipping effortlessly back into his polished tone. "Duty calls. City business never ends." He walked briskly back toward his Lincoln. But Rachel stood frozen. A closed-door meeting? A $20 tip for reading glasses? Weren't inspections handled by another department entirely? "Take care, Rachel," Rennick called over his shoulder, already opening his door. The heavy car door slammed shut, louder than it needed to. As the car shifted into gear, something hit the pavement with a metallic clink. Rachel looked down. A key, modern, brass, no ring attached. She picked it up, the metal warm from the sun. It must have slipped out from under the car when the door closed. She hurried to the driver's window and tapped. Through the tinted glass, she could see Rennick with the car phone to his ear. His face was tense, animated, almost angry. He glanced at her briefly, then waved her off. The car pulled away from the curb. "Mayor!" she called after him. But the Lincoln was already turning the corner. Rachel examined the key in her hand. No labels, no markings, nothing to hint at what it opened. But something about it felt important. Important enough that she couldn't just ignore it. Back inside the library, she approached the front desk. "Could I use your phone?" she asked. "I need to reach the mayor's office." Mrs. Hendress nodded and retrieved a laminated sheet of city contact numbers. "We have the main line for City Hall, but not the mayor's private number. That one's not public." Rachel dialed from the large desk phone. 4 rings, then a recorded message. "City offices are currently unavailable." "They might be at lunch," Mrs. Hendress offered, "or in a meeting. Try again later." "I will. Thank you." Rachel slipped the key into her pocket and returned to the quiet study room. She adjusted her new reading glasses and sat back down. That moment at the pharmacy still nagged at her. Rennick paying for her glasses so casually, so paternal, almost too casual, almost calculated. She reopened Harold's journal. The entries started off ordinary, city council updates, budget discussions. But then, the tone shifted. February 15th, 1980. "The level of corruption is worse than I thought. 3 businesses running without licenses, all tied to the Reynosa cartel. They're using New Braunfels as a pipeline for trafficking. I've got documentation. but going public will put a target on my back and my family's. Rachel's hands began to tremble. Harold had never told her a word about this. March 3rd, 1980, Clyde Rennick announced his campaign today, his push for economic growth through deregulation. It's code. He's giving criminals a green light. Talking about cutting red tape really means letting dirty money move freely through our town. Despite everything, Rachel almost smiled. That was Harold, calling things what they were. April 10th, 1980. The threats have started. Anonymous calls to the house. I intercept them before Rachel hears. They want me to drop out of the race. Rennick's people are getting nervous. I've added security at public events, but I won't back down. This town deserves better. May 26, 1980. Victory, 98% of the vote. The people want honest leadership. Rennick conceded, but his eyes said something else. This isn't over. Rachel flipped through the remaining pages. 2 hours passed in what felt like minutes. At last, she set the journal down and removed her glasses, dabbing tears from her eyes. 3 months after that election, Harold disappeared. And in the special election that followed, Clyde Rennick became mayor. The dots were connecting, too clearly to ignore. She needed to show these journals to Detective Ditt, needed to ask why none of this was investigated 8 years ago. Back at the front desk, she asked to use the phone again. Of course, Mrs. Hendress said without hesitation. The police station picked up on the second ring. The desk sergeant explained that Detective Ditt was currently out on a call, but Rachel could leave evidence with the duty officer. I'll come by after lunch, she said. This is too important to leave behind. She hung up, mind racing. Her stomach reminded her she hadn't eaten since morning. First food, then the police. Mrs. Hendress, she asked softly, could you keep this box safe for me while I grab lunch? Of course, dear. I'll keep it right here behind the desk. Take your time. Outside, the noon sun beat down with intensity. Rachel moved quickly, the day's events sitting heavy on her chest. The thought of sitting in a crowded cafe, surrounded by laughter and clinking cutlery, was unbearable. She craved quiet. 3 blocks west, there was a diner she remembered, a quiet spot often frequented by retirees and nurses from the nearby clinic. Simple food, no noise, perfect. She'd barely made it 2 blocks when a small figure darted out from between parked cars. A boy, maybe 8, dark hair, dust-covered cheeks, brown skin that marked him as one of the migrant family's children. He crashed into her legs, grabbing her shorts in desperation. Please, Senora, he begged, his voice accented but clear. My friend, they hurting him. Teenagers, big ones. Rachel hesitated. Her first instinct was caution. This area had seen its share of petty scams. Children used to distract victims, but the fear in this boy's eyes, the tears cutting through grime on his face, were real. Where? She asked. The playground, right there. He pointed down a nearby side street. Please, they're gonna hurt him bad. Despite every warning bell in her mind, Rachel followed. The playground sat behind an old elementary school, closed for summer. Swings swayed gently in the still air. The slide gleamed in the sun, but it was empty. No teenagers, no injured child, no one. I don't see any. They came from 3 directions at once, not teenagers, men, adults, fast, focused. Their faces were hard, unreadable. Rachel spun. Too late. The boy had vanished. Strong hands seized her arms, pinning her in place. Help! Somebody help me! She shouted, twisting against them, heart racing. But they didn't strike her. They searched her. Rough fingers patted her sides, dug into her pockets. Got it, one of them said, holding up the brass key. Take her, another ordered. A third pulled out a cloth and a brown glass bottle. The smell hit her instantly. Sweet, chemical, chloroform. They weren't just robbing her. They meant to take her. Panic surged into adrenaline. As the man with the cloth moved in, Rachel drove her knee up, hard, into the groin of the man gripping her arm. He collapsed with a grunt. Her free hand fumbled in her pocket and closed around the familiar shape, pepper spray. She'd carried it since Harold was elected, but never needed it. Until now. She aimed, sprayed. The stream hit square in the attacker's eyes. He screamed, dropping the soaked cloth. Rachel spun around, still gripping the pepper spray, and fired wildly in every direction. The mist caught the remaining two men as they lunged. They stumbled back, cursing and clawing at their eyes. In the chaos, the brass key slipped from her hand and hit the ground with a sharp metallic clink. She snatched it up and ran. Behind her, the men groaned in pain, blinded and disoriented. Rachel's legs moved on instinct, old track training kicking in as she sprinted down the street, screaming for help. Two men loading a truck nearby turned to look. "Please," she gasped. "They attacked me, back at the playground." They followed her as she led them back to the spot. But when they got there, the playground sat quiet, still, empty. Swings hung motionless. Sunlight glinted off the metal slide. There was no sign of her attackers. No boy. Nothing. "You feelin' okay, lady?" one of the men asked gently. "Maybe you need to sit down." "They were there," she insisted. 4 men. I was ambushed. But their expressions gave her the answer before they said a word. To them, she was a shaken woman in running clothes, claiming assault in an empty playground. "Never mind," she muttered and turned away. She didn't stop until she reached the main street, where shoppers strolled, store signs buzzed, and normal life resumed. Only then did her legs slow. Only then did the library door, just ahead, look like a sanctuary. She stumbled inside, soaked in sweat, trembling. Mrs. Hendress looked up, alarmed. "Mrs. Whitaker, what on earth?" "Men attacked me," Rachel gasped. She dropped into a chair, explaining in scattered bursts. The boy, the ambush, the key. "They wanted this," she said, holding up the brass key in her palm. "Breathe," Mrs. Hendress said softly, guiding her to sit back. "Start from the beginning." Rachel forced herself to slow down, then walked the librarian through everything. The key falling from Mayor Rennick's car, the boy luring her away, the men searching her, specifically for the key. Mrs. Hendress leaned over her desk, studying it under the warm glow of her lamp. "Look here," she murmured, pointing to a nearly invisible symbol on the head. "That's a Chi Rho, the first 2 letters of Christ in Greek." Rachel blinked. "A religious symbol?" "Early Christian," the librarian confirmed. "It's often used to mark sacred locations. This could be a church key or," she hesitated, "a cemetery crypt. Some of the older tombs use similar keys." The air between them went still. Rachel whispered, "Why would anyone attack me over a key to a church or crypt? And if it's the mayor's, why wouldn't he just ask for it back?" Mrs. Hendress met her gaze. Unless he couldn't. Unless admitting it was his would raise questions he doesn't want asked. Rachel's mind spun. Harold's journal, the corruption, his body, the key, and now, men sent after her with chloroform. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice cracking. "What if they come back?" "You need to go to the police," Mrs. Hendress said, firm now. "Tell them everything. Maybe they can figure out what this opens." "Yes, you're right." Rachel stood, still shaky. "Would you call me a cab? I don't feel safe walking." Mrs. Hendress was already picking up the phone. Minutes later, a yellow taxi pulled up outside. Rachel gathered the box of Harold's belongings and held it close like a shield. "Be careful," Mrs. Hendress said, walking her to the door. "And please call me. Let me know you're safe." Rachel slid into the back seat, the vinyl warm from the sun. "Police station, please," she told the driver. As the library faded behind her, she clenched the key tight in her palm. Whatever it opened, someone wanted it badly enough to send men after her in broad daylight. The police station smelled like floor wax and stale coffee. Rachel carried the box up to the front counter, arms aching from the weight of it all. "I need to report an assault," she said, still breathless. The young officer behind the desk looked up, his nameplate reading P. Martinez. "Ma'am, are you injured? Do you need medical attention?" "No, I got away." Rachel told him everything. The key, the ambush, the chloroform. How the key had fallen from the mayor's car. How the men had come not to rob her, but to retrieve something. Officer Martinez took notes, but with every sentence, his expression grew tighter, less convinced. "You believe Mayor Rennick was behind this?" he asked carefully. "The key fell from his car," she said. "Who else would know I had it?" Martinez set his pen down. "Mrs. Whitaker, that's a serious allegation. Just because it appeared to fall from his vehicle doesn't mean it belonged to him." He leaned back slightly. "Let's consider this. Someone could have planted the key on the mayor's car, someone who wanted him to be tied to it. Then it fell off when he opened the door, and you picked it up. Maybe they were after him, not you." It was plausible, neat, logical, and it felt completely wrong. "But the librarian said the symbol's religious," Rachel pressed. "It could be for a church or cemetery. What if it's tied to Harold, to where he was found?" Martinez raised an eyebrow. "That's quite a leap." "Check the key for fingerprints," Rachel said. "Someone's prints have to be on it." Martinez glanced at the wall clock. "Our forensic tech is..." "The tech's at lunch," Officer Martinez said, sealing the key inside an evidence bag. "Won't be back for at least an hour. And truthfully, that key's already been handled. By you, maybe those men too. Any prints are probably compromised." Still, he tucked the bag away. "We'll process it when the tech returns. Maybe we'll get lucky and find a match in the system." Rachel felt frustration rising in her chest. "You need to notify Mayor Rennick," she said. "That key fell from his car. I tried calling his office earlier, but no one picked up." Martinez gave a tight nod, clearly unconvinced. "I'll make sure he's informed," he said, though his tone made it clear it wasn't high on his list. "Is Detective DeWitt back yet?" she pressed. "I'd feel better speaking to him directly." The officer shifted slightly in his seat. "Still out in the field. These calls, you know how it is. Could be an hour, could be the whole day." "I'll wait," Rachel said firmly. "Suit yourself. Waiting room's through there. Or you could go home. We'll call you with any updates." Rachel gathered the box of Harold's journals and stepped into the waiting area. Hard plastic chairs lined the wall beneath faded safety posters and a corkboard cluttered with old flyers. She sat down, the box beside her, feeling more alone than ever. Minutes crawled by. Through the office window, she watched officers come and go, filing reports, pouring coffee, making copies. Then a man caught her attention. Not a police officer, tall, silver-haired, dressed in a dark suit. He shook hands with one of the desk staff, exchanged polite words, then turned to leave. Rachel's eyes fell to the keychain he carried, Riverside Funeral Home. Without thinking, she rose and followed him out. "Excuse me," she called once they were both in the parking lot. The man turned. He was older, late 50s or early 60s, with wire-rimmed glasses and a calm, kind expression. "Yes?" he asked. "Can I help you?" "I'm Rachel Whitaker," she said, catching her breath. "I saw your key fob, Riverside. Do you work there?" "Thomas Hartley," he replied, offering a gentle handshake. "Funeral director. I also handle mortuary work when needed." "Mr. Hartley, I know this sounds strange, but I came across a key today. The police have it now, but it had a strange symbol, like an early Christian marking, a Chi-Rho." Hartley's eyebrows lifted. "Chi-Rho? That's specific." He hesitated. Then, "Why don't you come to my office? I've got some reference books that might help." His black Oldsmobile was parked a few spaces down. Riverside Funeral Home wasn't far, only 5 blocks. A stately Victorian house, its once warm facade now shadowed by the weight of its purpose. Inside, Hartley led her to his office, a room filled with rich wood, old books, and solemn quiet. "Can you draw it?" he asked, pushing a pad and pencil toward her. Rachel did her best to sketch the key and the faint symbol she remembered. Hartley leaned over the page, then turned to a leather-bound ledger. His fingers flipped slowly through yellowed pages. "Interesting," he murmured, stopping near the middle. "This symbol, yes, it's associated with the Blackwood family crypt, Kumall Cemetery, east side of town." Rachel leaned forward. "A crypt?" Hartley nodded. "One of the oldest in the cemetery, mid-1800s. It's been sealed for decades. As far as I know, only a few original keys exist. One for the family, one with the cemetery caretaker, possibly a spare. But the key I found, it looked modern." "Then someone had a copy made," Hartley said, frowning. "That's unusual. Very few locksmiths would touch that kind of job without permission. And the cemetery board is strict about crypt access." Rachel's voice dropped. "Why would anyone need a new key to a sealed crypt?" Hartley was quiet for a long moment. "In my experience, people who seek unauthorized access to burial sites rarely do so for noble reasons." A chill crept up Rachel's spine. "You've been more helpful than you know," she said as he walked her to the door. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Mrs. Whitaker. Be careful." The bus ride home dragged. She slumped in the back seat, eyes flicking to every new passenger. The city she knew now felt unfamiliar, unsafe. She stepped off near her house and stared at it for a long moment. It looked unchanged, quiet, ordinary. But she wasn't the same woman who had left it that morning. The key turned stiffly in the lock. Harold always kept it oiled, always handled those small things. Inside, she placed the box on the hallway table and moved from room to room, locking windows, checking doors. It felt excessive, and not nearly enough. Back in the living room, she dropped onto the sofa, still in her sweat-stained clothes from that morning jog, a jog that now belonged to a different lifetime. The sun filtered through the blinds, painting golden stripes on the carpet. She should eat. She should shower. She did none of it. Time passed in strange stretches, first light gold, then orange, then red, then gone. Darkness settled, but Rachel didn't turn on any lights. Her mind circled back to Hartley's words. The Blackwood Crypt, Kumall Cemetery, sealed for decades. Why would Mayor Rennick have a modern key to a place no one was supposed to enter? From the window, Rachel watched the streetlights flicker on, one by one, casting long, lonely shadows across the pavement. The house around her felt smaller by the minute, the walls closing in, each creak of settling wood tightening the knot in her chest. Every passing car outside made her flinch. Was it them? Were they coming back? She couldn't sit and wait any longer. With a sudden burst of resolve, Rachel stood. She would go to the station. She would demand to see Detective Dweet, even if it meant waiting all night. Her car keys hung on the hook by the garage door. This time, she wasn't depending on anyone else. The drive to the police station took 10 minutes. She knew the route by heart. She'd taken it more times than she could count in the early days, when Harold and Phoebe had first vanished, and every breath felt like a question without an answer. As she neared the final turn, her headlights swept across the station's parking lot. That's when she saw him, Mayor Rennick, standing beside his black Lincoln, speaking with someone under the dim glow of a street lamp. Rachel slowed, heart pounding. The other man, Officer Martinez, the same officer who dismissed her concerns earlier. Then she saw it. Martinez handed something to Rennick. It could have been anything, but her gut screamed key, the Chi-Rho key, the one she had personally handed over as evidence. Rennick pocketed the item and slid into his car. Rachel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. In a flash, she made her decision. Instead of pulling in, she drove past the lot, looping around the block, then made a slow U-turn. Rennick's Lincoln was easy to follow, those distinctive taillights gliding steadily down the street. She kept her distance, staying 2 cars behind. She remembered something she'd once read in a detective novel: never follow too close, always act like you belong. Rennick drove slowly, smooth, deliberate, signaling every turn. They passed through downtown, then headed east, toward the old part of town. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. Cemetery Road. Just like Hartley had said, she killed her headlights and veered onto a side road near the groundskeeper's shed, parking beneath a canopy of low-hanging oak trees. Her dark blue Honda melted into the shadows. She cut the engine and waited. Through the wrought iron fence, she watched Rennick's Lincoln glide to a stop at the cemetery gate. A figure limped from the caretaker's cottage to greet him. They exchanged words, then both disappeared into the shadows beyond the gate. Rachel slipped out of her car, her black jogging clothes blending into the darkness. The fence here was low, more decorative than protective. She climbed over, landing quietly on the damp grass. The cemetery stretched before her, moonlit and ancient, filled with crooked stones and towering oaks. She moved from monument to monument, using the shadows as cover. Ahead, the flicker of flashlight beams stopped near a large stone crypt, its weathered limestone marked by time, with Gothic arches and heavy iron doors. The Blackwood Crypt. Rachel crouched behind a nearby headstone, barely breathing. Rennick stepped forward, pulled the key from his pocket, and turned it in the lock. No resistance, no rust, as if it had been used recently. The door opened smoothly. The 2 men stepped inside and vanished. Time dragged. Rachel's legs began to ache from crouching. Her back pressed against the cold stone. Her body begged for rest. Just a moment. Just to close her eyes. A loud clang jolted her awake. The crypt door slammed shut. How long had she been out? The moon had moved. Voices echoed in the stillness. Rennick and the caretaker were outside now, standing near the entrance. "Keep watch tonight," Rennick said. "I'm taking the old padlock with me. No sign of tampering. I'll bring back the original tomorrow." Rachel pressed a hand to her mouth. No sign of tampering. They were covering their tracks. The key was for this crypt, and Rennick didn't want anyone knowing it had ever been used. The mayor's car pulled away, its headlights sweeping the tombstones as it exited the cemetery. The caretaker remained. He settled onto a bench near the crypt entrance, lit a cigarette, its orange tip glowing like a beacon in the dark. Rachel waited. He smoked and smoked. Finally, he yawned, stretched, and limped back toward his cottage, but not before wedging a thick branch across the crypt doors. Crude, but enough to deter a casual visitor. Rachel gave it another 10 minutes, just to be sure. Then she moved. The branch was heavy, but manageable. She eased it aside, flinching at every scrape. Then she pulled the crypt door open. It swung inward on silent, oiled hinges. Inside, her eyes adjusted slowly. Stone steps led downward. The air turned colder with each step. She moved carefully, one hand on the wall. At the bottom, the chamber opened into a small room lined with burial niches, carved names nearly erased by time. But one section of wall didn't match. Newer stones, different mortar, a hidden door, not well hidden. She pushed. It creaked open. The smell hit her instantly. Unwashed flesh, decay, despair. Then, soft sobbing. A voice, weak, pleading. "Not again. Please, not again." Rachel froze. That voice, older now, hollowed by time, but unforgettable. "Phoebe," she whispered. The sobbing stopped. A silence that stretched like eternity. Then, trembling. "Mom, no, I'm imagining you again." Rachel rushed forward, hands outstretched in the dark. Her fingers brushed something. Someone, thin, shaking, curled in the corner. She dropped to her knees. "Phoebe," she breathed, wrapping her arms around her daughter. She felt nothing but bones and trembling. "Phoebe, my sweet girl." Her daughter was 18 now, but her body, ravaged by malnutrition, felt small, fragile, but alive. Unbelievably alive. She was so small, far too small for 18. Her cheeks were hollow, her skin pale, her eyes too large in a face shaped by hunger and fear. She clung to Rachel with desperate, trembling arms. "Is it real?" Phoebe whispered. "Are you real? I think I imagine things sometimes." "I'm real, baby," Rachel whispered, tears streaming freely now. "I'm here. I've got you." She pulled back, her hands gently cradling her daughter's face. Even in the dark, she could see Harold's eyes looking back at her. Only now they were filled with 8 years of nightmares. "We need help," Rachel said, voice steady despite the panic rising in her chest. "I need to call the police." "No," Phoebe gripped her tighter. "Don't leave me. He'll come back. He always comes back." Rachel's heart cracked. "I know, but if I don't call for help, they'll come for us both. I'll be fast. I promise." It took every ounce of will to peel herself away. Phoebe whimpered, curling into the shadows. Rachel ran. She slipped through the cemetery like a ghost, grateful for the silence. No sign of the caretaker, no one watching, no one to stop her. She made it to her car, shaking as she drove, 3 blocks to the nearest payphone at an abandoned gas station. Her fingers fumbled with the receiver, coins rattling as she fed in a quarter and dialed. "Police emergency. I need Detective Roy Dweet," she said, forcing her voice to stay level. "Or Officer Hans Carson. Only them. It's about the Whitaker case." "Ma'am, are you in immediate danger?" "My daughter. I found her. She's alive. She's been held captive all these years. Please, only Dit or Carson. I think there's corruption. I don't know who I can trust." There was a pause, then a click. "Mrs. Whitaker?" A voice she knew. Detective DeWitt. "Where are you?" "Coma Cemetery, the Blackwood Crypt. She's there, alive, but barely. It's Rennick. Mayor Rennick has been keeping her. Please send medics. Hurry, the caretaker might come back. We're on our way, stay safe. 10 minutes. She hung up. 10 minutes. She prayed it would be enough. Rachel raced back toward the cemetery, her hands locked on the steering wheel. Her heart pounded with each second she spent away from Phoebe. Then, headlights, blinding. High beams filled her rearview mirror. A black van, coming fast, too fast. Its bumper slammed into hers. Metal crunched. Her car jolted forward. She fought for control. Another hit, harder. The Honda fishtailed, wheels screaming. Rachel yanked the wheel, tires kicking up gravel as the car skidded down an embankment. A massive oak loomed ahead. She hit the brakes, hard. The car stopped inches from the trunk. The van roared past without slowing, toward the cemetery, toward Phoebe. Rachel threw the car into reverse, the wheels spinning in the dirt. She lurched back onto the road, floorboard pressed to the floor. Her engine protested, but she didn't let up. At the cemetery gates, chaos. The van was parked askew, its doors wide open. 3 men stood clustered around the crypt. Even from the road, Rachel could hear them shouting. "Open it now!" The caretaker scrambled with keys. The branch she'd placed as a barrier had been broken aside like it was nothing. They vanished inside. Rachel didn't wait. She jumped out, sprinting through the gates. She couldn't let them take Phoebe again, but they were fast, too fast. They re-emerged almost immediately. One of them carried Phoebe like she weighed nothing. Her limbs dangled, her head lolled. "Phoebe!" Rachel screamed. The men froze, just for a second. Then sirens split the silence. Bright blue and red lights lit up the night like fire. "Move!" someone shouted. The man with Phoebe ran for the van. The others followed. Rachel sprinted for her Honda. If they reached the exit before the police, no, not again. She drove straight at the narrow cemetery gate, yanked the wheel, and slammed the Honda sideways, blocking the exit completely. She killed the engine, grabbed the keys, threw the door open. The van screeched to a stop, facing her. Through the windshield, she saw the driver, furious, revving the engine like he might ram her. But the moment shattered. Police cruisers flew in from all sides, boxing in the van, 3 patrol cars, an ambulance. "Exit the vehicle! Hands visible!" An officer shouted. The van doors burst open. The men spilled out, arguing. "She's our ticket out!" one screamed. "No," said another. "The mayor said not to touch her. He'll kill us." "Screw the mayor. He's not here." They fought, grappling over Phoebe. She fell, hit the ground like a rag doll. Detective Dwight charged forward with Officer Carson beside him. The distraction gave them the opening they needed. Within seconds, all 4 men were face down on the pavement. "You have the right to remain silent." Dwight's voice rang out as he cuffed the first attacker, his tone steady but fierce. Rachel didn't wait. She ran, dropped to her knees beside Phoebe, gathered her into her arms. "Phoebe? Sweetheart? Can you hear me?" Her daughter's eyes fluttered open. Her voice was barely a breath. "Mom? Is it over?" Paramedics surrounded them, calm but urgent. "Ma'am, we need to examine her." They worked fast, checking her pulse, her vitals, setting an IV. Rachel saw their alarm beneath the practiced calm. Phoebe couldn't sit up on her own, could barely speak. 8 years of captivity had left her a ghost, a living ghost. One paramedic leaned in. "Severe malnutrition. She needs fluids, fast. She's in bad shape, but she's alive." Rachel stroked her daughter's hair. "You're safe now," she whispered. "No one's taking you again." And for the first time in 8 years, she believed it. "Dehydration," one of the paramedics murmured. "We need to transport immediately." With practiced care, they lifted Phoebe onto the gurney. She whimpered, reaching out, her hand grasping blindly. "I'm coming with her," Rachel said without hesitation. No one argued. Detective Dwight appeared at her side, his voice low. "Go. We've secured the scene. I'll meet you at the hospital. There's a lot we need to discuss." Rachel climbed into the ambulance and never let go of Phoebe's hand. As the doors closed and the chaos faded behind them, she caught one last glimpse, the 3 men being loaded into separate patrol cars, the caretaker sitting on the curb with his head in his hands, an officer standing over him. Inside the ambulance, the only sounds were the rhythmic hum of the engine and the beeping of monitors. Rachel stared at her daughter's face, hollow, wounded, but alive. "You're safe now," she whispered. "I swear to you, you're safe." Phoebe's fingers tightened weakly around hers. For the first time in 8 years, Rachel dared to believe it might be true. The emergency room doors burst open. The gurney rolled through. Phoebe's fragile hand gripped Rachel's with surprising strength. "Don't leave!" she gasped, panic in her eyes. "Please, Mom, don't leave me!" A nurse with kind eyes and graying hair took in the scene quickly. "We'll make an exception," she told Rachel. "You can stay, but sit there." She pointed to a corner chair. "Don't interfere." Rachel nodded, taking her place where Phoebe could still see her. The team moved quickly, cutting away the filthy rags Phoebe wore. Rachel fought back tears at what was revealed, bruises in every stage of healing, open sores, her ribs stark and sharp beneath pale skin. The staff cleaned each wound gently, murmuring soft reassurances. A female doctor leaned in close and spoke softly. "Sweetheart," she said to Phoebe, "I need to ask you something hard. Has anyone hurt you in ways they shouldn't have? Touched you where they shouldn't?" Phoebe's face crumpled. She gave the smallest nod. "We'll need to examine you," the doctor said gently, "to treat everything and document it. Is that okay?" Another nod. Phoebe turned toward her mother, her eyes begging for strength. Rachel stood abruptly. I need a moment." She fled the room, reaching the hallway just before the sobs overtook her. She collapsed to the floor, leaning against the cold tile wall, her body shaking. 8 years of torment her daughter had survived. The grief, the guilt, the rage, every tear carried them all. "Mrs. Whitaker?" Rachel looked up. Detective Dwight and Officer Carson stood nearby. Dwight crouched beside her, concern written across his face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be," Dwight said gently. "Take your time." Carson offered a handkerchief. She took it gratefully, wiped her face, and drew several steadying breaths. "Let's talk," she said finally. "You need to hear everything." A nearby nurse guided them to a small consultation room. Carson unpacked his portable typewriter and loaded a clean sheet of paper. "Start from this morning," Dwight said, "after we found Harold." So she told them everything. The mayor driving her to retrieve Harold's journals, the encounter at the pharmacy, the key, the ambush, the officer who brushed her off, the crypt, finding Phoebe. Dwight reached into his pocket and pulled out an evidence bag. Inside was the brass key. "Is this it?" Rachel nodded. "Yes, that's the key that fell from Mayor Rennick's car." "I got back to the station 5 hours ago," Dwight explained. "I didn't know anything about a key or your husband's journals until your call. I confronted Martinez. He broke, said Rennick paid him to hand over the key. He's in custody now. Rennick's being transported to the station as we speak. We took that key off him." He leaned forward. "And those 3 men we arrested? They're already talking. Said Rennick called them this afternoon, told them to move Phoebe, deal with you, and change the lock." Rachel pulled out Harold's journal from her bag. "My husband recorded everything. The corruption, the cartel fronts, Rennick's campaign. He saw through it all. But he didn't tell me. He was trying to protect us." Dwight nodded, his voice low. "He was a good man. He believed in this town. That's exactly why Rennick hated him." "He arranged the kidnapping," Rachel said. Dwight's expression turned grim. 2 of the suspects confirmed it separately. "They're connected to the Reynosa cartel. That pharmacy you visited? They've been using the basement to manufacture narcotics. The pharmacist, he's their chemist." Rachel's stomach turned. "They killed Harold, didn't they?" Dwight nodded once. "Held him in that church basement. It's owned by shell companies linked to the cartel. They tortured him, trying to extract names, locations, documents." Rachel stared down at the floor. "They buried him beneath the church," she whispered, "and left my daughter in the dark." "He gave them the transfer routes," Detective Dwight said softly. "Trying to protect Phoebe. He thought if he gave them what they wanted, they'd let her live." Rachel's voice broke. "But they killed him anyway." Dwight nodded. "Rennick promised them protection in exchange for eliminating your husband. Harold was in their way. Too honest, too committed. Rennick needed him gone." Rachel swallowed hard. "Phoebe, she confirmed the abuse. I heard her tell the doctor." Dwight's jaw tightened. "That's probably why Rennick kept her alive. The men we arrested today, the cartel crew, they claim they didn't know she was still alive until this afternoon. Rennick ordered them to clean up both you and Phoebe, same team that ambushed you earlier." Rachel closed her eyes. "He panicked when the barrel was found." "Exactly," Dwight said. "And Martinez, he must have tipped him off about the key. He's a rat. You called from that payphone? I'd already been back at the station for 2 hours. Martinez hadn't said a word to me. I'm sure now he's been on Rennick's payroll the whole time." Rachel stared at the floor, struggling to process it all. 8 years, all this time, and no one knew? "The cemetery caretaker," Dwight said. "Martin Solis. He's in custody. Rennick paid him to keep her there, to feed her just enough to keep her alive, but not enough to let her escape. He even admitted to using her himself, said it made him feel more powerful than the mayor. Rachel clutched her stomach, the bile rising. She's so thin, so small. How could they? Some men, DeWitt said darkly, are twisted beyond reason. They enjoy pain. Some even take pleasure in being close to the dead. There's no rationalizing it. Rachel's voice was barely a whisper. Why didn't anyone find them? DeWitt's face was grim. The church basement wasn't on any current records. A renovation back in the 40s sealed it off. It was removed from blueprints. I found that out this afternoon. And we suspect several officers involved in the original investigation were feeding Rennick false leads. They dumped Harold's car in the river to throw us off completely. Rachel didn't speak. She couldn't. Then, a knock at the door. A doctor stepped in, the same one who had gently questioned Phoebe. Mrs. Whitaker, she said, your daughter is stable. Her wounds are being treated and we've started IV nutrition. She's very weak, but she's holding on. She'll need time, both physical and emotional recovery, but she's strong. You can see her now, room 214. Rachel stood, her voice a whisper. Thank you. DeWitt rose, his tone firm but warm. We'll take it from here. We'll make sure Rennick doesn't walk free, and Harold, he'll get the honors he deserves. Rachel nodded. Thank you, both of you. Room 214 was dimly lit. Machines beeped in steady rhythm. Phoebe lay in a hospital bed, her frame thin, her eyes heavier than they should ever have been. An IV delivered nutrients slowly into her arm. Mom, she whispered. Rachel rushed to her side and took her hand gently. I'm here, baby. I'm not going anywhere. Phoebe's voice was fragile, but clear. Is he really gone? The mayor? Yes, the police have him. He can't hurt you anymore. Tears slipped down Phoebe's cheeks. I tried to be strong, like Daddy would have wanted, but sometimes I didn't think I'd make it. Rachel leaned in close, her voice fierce with love. You were strong. You are strong. The strongest person I've ever known. You survived, sweetheart. They talked quietly, carefully avoiding the darkest details. Phoebe's eyelids began to droop, the mix of medication and pure exhaustion pulling her under. Sleep now, Rachel whispered. I'm right here, I promise. As her daughter drifted off, Rachel settled into the chair beside her. She thought about the jog that morning that had changed everything. Harold's body discovered beneath the church, the journal, the key, the truth. 8 years of silence, broken in a single day. Her daughter was alive, hurt, but alive. Her husband would finally be laid to rest, and justice, at last, had found its way through the darkness. Rachel leaned her head gently against the side of the hospital bed. Her hand remained wrapped around Phoebe's, and for the first time in 8 years, she let herself sleep.